Guys, it has been such a long time. Um, this time my absence is not without explanation. How's everyone doing? If you have read the title, you know that something most definitely happened. Not only has it altered my reality as far as like YouTube, my podcast, and etc., which is I guess the easier part of it, it has also changed so many things in our lives. So basically what happened is that my husband was in an accident, in a car accident, and I wanted to give an update because that accident kind of set off like a chain of events. Like other things have happened since then. A lot of other not so great things have happened, especially within the week of the accident. Things were happening back to back to back, and I just felt the need to share, call it like a partial testimony. The testimony is, I guess it is kind of complete, but you know, I think it's on its way to completion, let me say that. So yeah, I wanted to share the story of what happened, what's been going on. I guess this can be like a life update. So on a Saturday night, my husband had left the house. He was going to go for a wedding, and then he was going to go for a meeting. So as he left the house, as he was leaving, like he left the first time, as he was leaving that first time, I realized that the door had jammed in my room. Thankfully Zoe was not inside, so I had to call him back. We had just changed the hinges on our door, so I had to call him back to fix the door, to help me open the door, whatever. Cool. So that happened, and I eventually went to sleep. At midnight, I was woken up by Deji barging into Zoe's room. So I fell asleep in Zoe's room. I was woken up by him barging into Zoe's room, and he looked really disoriented. I was like, what happened? Are you okay? I remembered that Zoe had helped me hang some clothes on the railing. So I was thinking, I hope he was not walking up the stairs in the dark and he fell down. So I literally asked him, I said, did you fall down? He said yes. So I was really worried. I got up and then we went to our room, which is so Zoe's room is on the second floor. We're on the first floor, and then this is the ground floor, which is the living room area. Went to our room. And as soon as we got to the room, he lay down on the bed and he was like, something happened. And he was kind of talking a bit disoriented. I was like, is he intoxicated? But he has had like an extraction. He has been on medication for a while, so I know that he hasn't been drinking or anything like that. So I was like, okay. But he was acting really weird. So he kept on saying, something happened, there was an accident. I was like, what do you mean there was an accident? He said the car is gone. So Deji and I came into this marriage with our own individual cars. I had my car from my mother's house and he had his own car. So that night he had chosen to take out his car. We don't really use that car a lot, just because he doesn't really like it, and aside from that, it's like one of those fuel guzzling cars. So he was like, the Honda is no more. That's actually what he said. And I was like, what does that even mean, the Honda is no more? I leave my room, go to the window, which is in my office, and look down, and I see that true, he has not come back with any car. So there's so many questions. He now asks me to call his friend, like one of his closest friends, Gozi. He keeps on saying, call Gozi, call Gozi. And he asked me to bring an ice pack that he had hurt his jaw. So I brought the ice pack. I was just thinking, what the hell is going on? Like in my mind, I was still thinking, is this guy, like, was he intoxicated? Like, I don't understand what is going on. But the truth of the matter is that DG doesn't take those kind of risks. At least Thank God, since he got married. I don't know about his life before that. Or let me not say since he got married, since we had Zoe, he doesn't take a lot of risks when it comes to like himself, his safety, obviously his family's safety. So, but the way he was talking so disoriented, I was getting angry because I felt like, is this guy actually drunk? And I'm just like bothering myself for nothing. Did like what actually happened? So I call his friend. In the midst of everything, I call my mom as well, because as I'm calling his friend to come with me to take him to the hospital. I call my mom to come to my house. This is now around like midnight, almost 1 a.m. to come to my house. Thankfully, she had been on antibiotics for some days, but that day in particular, she refused to take her Piriton. She was supposed to take 2, so it makes her sleep, but she didn't like the feeling of sleeping so deeply, so she did not take the medicine that night. So she was awake, she woke up. I called my brother Timmy as well, my brother-in-law Timmy, and him and my mom came. As they were coming to the house, on the express, they actually saw the car and they saw the state of the car. So my mother and Timmy, in their wisdom, thought to stop at the car. His wallet was in there, and then his documents for the meeting that he was going to, and car documents. So they basically took everything out and came to the house. So as they came to the house, Gozie also came to the house, and Gozie, Timmy, Deji, and I started our journey into the night, into what was going to turn into the most melodramatic night of my life. By God's grace, it will not ever get worse than that. There's such an irony in this story, and I hope that I remember to say it at the end of the story, because I feel like it is more valuable, is more of value at the end of the story than now. So we went to 4 different hospitals. The first one we went to is really close to here. It's actually a children's hospital, it's Zoe's hospital. But at that point in time, Deji had convinced himself in his delirious states that his jaw had been dislocated. Now I found this quite odd because he was only hurting one side of his jaw was hurting. If your jaw is dislocated, it's kind of taken out of both sides. So he was begging me to adjust his jaw, and I refused to do that. 1, because I'm not a professional, and 2, I felt like it was a risky thing to do, which eventually, thankfully, the doctor told him that it was a good thing that I didn't try to do that, because it would have made the situation worse. So thank God for wisdom, and thank God for stubbornness. Went to the first hospital, nobody answered. We're knocking at the gates, nobody answered. Went to the second hospital, the gates were open, lights were on, we could not find a single human being there. Went to the third hospital, and they said that there's nobody that is a specialist that can like do a scan or anything on his head, because his pain was all here, like all on one side of his face. So there they gave him some pain medication, and they sent us off to National Hospital. We got to National Hospital. By the time we got to National Hospital, the melodrama of it all. You know, sometimes even when you've overcome a situation, just the emotions that are attached to it still catch you off guard, because I wasn't expecting. You guys have heard the way that I've been speaking since. I wasn't expecting that at any point in time, or at least not this early on, would it get emotional. And this is one of the reasons why I did not put on any makeup today, aside from the fact that I was really tired and lazy, and we literally just moved back into our house 2 days ago, after like 3 weeks of being away. So went to National Hospital. By this point in time, his eye on that side was already getting bloodshot. So he had been laying on my lap. In the car, he'll be asking different questions. So we kind of got the idea that he had a concussion. So that's why he was so disoriented. He kept on asking, where's my wife and stuff like that. And he was literally on my lap. He'll be asking where Zoe is. He was apologizing to me for like inconveniencing me. And he just kept on repeating. He would ask me to go to the fridge to get an ice pack, and I'd have to remind him that we're in the car going to the hospital. So it was it was a very crazy and wild experience, and it was made more so difficult, but that will make sense in the next video why the situation was made more difficult. We got to National Hospital. They sent us away because they did not have any beds available. Meanwhile, my husband, in his trauma state, in his concussed state, kept making a big deal out of the fact that he did not want to be in National Hospital. And I kept on asking him why he did not want to be in National Hospital. I thought it was just, oh, he doesn't like National Hospital. Obviously, you hear so many stories about that place. The place is decrepit now, it's whatever. But he he said to me that he doesn't want to be here because this is where they brought my dad's body when my dad passed away. And I was just thinking to myself in the car, like, this guy is actually psychotic. But at the same time, like, I don't think I've ever been so painfully aware of how much somebody loves me, because you are literally in a state of like, we just didn't know what was going to happen, and you're still thinking about me and my comfort, up to the point that I wasn't even thinking about that. He was the one in his concussed state that was thinking about that. By the time we left National Hospital, they sent us somewhere else. By the time we left National Hospital, Deji and I made the decision to just go straight to Cedar Crest. So we went to Cedar Crest. They got him a bed. We had to pay a deposit. At that point in time, so I can't remember if it's that I didn't have enough money to pay the full deposit, or that my limit had cut me off at a certain point in time. So at least Gozi was there, so he paid the rest of the deposit, and they eventually got him to do a CT scan. So as they did the CT scan, he was in the like emergency / resuscitation room. And by this time, about the movement, it was around like maybe 4 or 5 a.m. And you know, I had to call my mom to update her. We finally got in a room. My sister-in-law Dami, if you're on my Instagram, you know her, because like when she was in Nigeria, we're pretty much inseparable. Her and her husband were around. Coincidentally, they had just come in to surprise us, like to surprise everybody, and they arrived at my house on our wedding anniversary. So they had literally been here for like a week for this thing to happen, and they just had one more week left. So called everybody. They did the scan. They saw that there was no swelling in his brain, no bleeding in his brain. So there was peace of mind in that, because the doctor was basically like, okay, so it's something that can wait. They needed somebody else to come and read the other part of the scan to see if there were any fractures or anything like that. So eventually I was coerced into going home. I didn't really want to leave because I knew I wasn't going to sleep in the first place. But my brother-in-law and our friend Gozi kind of just convinced me to go home. We passed by where the accident happened, but I refused to look at the car. I still don't even know what it looks like, to be honest. I don't really want to know. I don't really want to know. If the car is going to be fixed, I would like it to be fixed and not brought back to our house. For the time being, I don't think I'm ready to envision fully what actually happened. So at this point in time, I'm asking him questions and stuff because he's a bit more mellow. I think they've started him on an IV and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, his face, that side of his face starts going numb. So it's almost like a good and a bad thing, because he was no longer in that level of pain, but he was still in pain higher up. So he wasn't in pain on his jaw area anymore. He was just in pain higher up. And then he was, you know, being normal DG. He was cracking jokes with the doctors and the nurses and trying to put everybody at ease, but he couldn't remember what happened. So eventually I went home at maybe 6 or 5 something, got home and I just sat in our room and I was just looking at the sun rising, because in my mind I was like, I know I'm not going to sleep. And true to it, I did not sleep. I was just waiting for it to be bright so that nobody will have any excuse or any reason to tell me I cannot go back to the hospital. So at this point in time, people that know are my mom, Gozie, Timmy, Dami, Alfred, Dami. Those are the people that knew what had happened. So we went back to the hospital in the morning, and at that juncture we made the decision to now call his parents and tell them what had happened, and call his sister, his eldest sister, to tell her what had happened as well. So in that process, everybody now began to troop in. News began to spread, like our close friends and stuff like that started to troop in as well. He was in a lot of pain. He wasn't really able to sleep because obviously he was in a lot of pain, and we spent most of that day just waiting to get information about what was going on. Eventually a doctor came and told us that he had 3 fractures in his face, on that side of his face. And then later on another doctor came and told us that he was definitely going to need surgery. So by the next day he was going to have surgery. So the next day came. Dami slept over in the hospital because eventually I had a breakdown. I had like a public breakdown. Not just because the situation was emotional. I feel like I kind of already accepted that the situation was emotional, but I was just so tired because I hadn't slept I literally didn't sleep for 24 hours. I didn't sleep for 24 hours. From that midnight I woke up. The next day is at around midnight that I finally fell back asleep. So so many of my friends, I actually haven't been able to express this situation to them again, because honestly it has been so draining having to relive what happened. I don't think I've ever felt like that before. I don't think anything can really prepare you for your partner being in that situation that is like a life or death situation. And I just kept on saying to myself, this is literally like exactly a week after my wedding anniversary. Like, what the hell does this even mean? So eventually Dami stayed over. There was a lot of back and forth with our insurance company. We were trying to get them to cover it, because the amount that they were asking for initially started off at 4 million. At 4 million. Then eventually my mom was able to get it down because she knew, like, the owner of the hospital, down to like 2 million for the deposit. So they didn't know actually how much the surgery was going to cost, but they wanted us to put down another deposit. So Dami was the one that just championed the whole thing about the insurance. So she was on the phone with them constantly. Eventually the time that they had initially given us for the surgery, we were not able to meet it because we had not concluded with the insurance company. And then we got a second time. The insurance company was still wasting a lot of time. So eventually we ended up, and when I say we, I mean his family, because I certainly did just not have that amount of money readily available. So his family ended up paying for it out of pocket, with the mindset that the insurance company was going to reimburse it, which the process was started that same day. So he waited for some hours again. He was just in a lot of pain, but he didn't really know how to express the fact that he was in pain. He couldn't really do much. He was just lying down. He would ask for ice pack after ice pack, and his face was swelling and swelling even more. At that point in time, his eye had actually already even shut. So eventually the surgery happened. By the time it was time for him to go into surgery, my mom had had surgery in that hospital as well, and I was with her when she had that surgery. And I remember them moving us to the room that she was going to stay in before she even came out of surgery. So before she went into surgery, I already had moved her stuff to the room. So I kept on asking, where is the room that he's going to be moved to? They kept on telling me that they had no rooms available. True to it, guys, by the time Deji came out of surgery in the evening, he had to sleep in the recovery room with like 6 or 7 other people that were just supposed to be transitioning. Like, recovery is just for them to monitor you for like an hour or an hour and a half. Hey baby, do you have a good nap? Yeah, recovery is just to monitor you for like an hour and a half type of thing. But he ended up having to stay there, and I think that was actually one of the most difficult nights because he had just come out of surgery. His face was extremely, guys, his face was like, that side of his face was like twice the size of the other side. He was in so much pain, so much discomfort, and he could not even have any silence because other people's machines would be guys, it was actually such a traumatic experience. Like, it was traumatic for him, it was traumatic for me. At some point in time, he couldn't really eat much. I ended up like mixing golden mon and like making it really watery in a cup just so that he couldn't drink from a straw or anything. They couldn't even sit him up at that point in time. So I was literally like spoon feeding him. Even drops of water, they would only allow one person in there at a time. I didn't have anywhere to sit down. So it was just a thing of, I couldn't even stay with him. There was nobody could sleep with him. Nobody could just be there in case he needed anything. We literally had to leave him overnight. And I think that was actually the worst night because it actually felt like that was the point in time that he was by himself, like he was alone. So the next day came. It was just such an emotional thing. By the time I came, I was happy because there were less people in the recovery room, and it was obvious to me that he had made friends with like the nurses that were there. So they had moved him to a bigger bed in the recovery room, so I think he had actually slept bearably. By the time I was feeding him by the time I brought his food and I was feeding him, I sat on the bed next to him, and it was so difficult to look at his face and like just envision all the pain that he was going through. And in the midst of all of that, there was actually a nurse that asked me to stand up. I was just like, bruh, I'm just trying to feed him. I'm trying to help him brush his teeth. Like, I'm just trying to be here. This is somebody that, aside from one point in time when he traveled for a wedding, we've not spent a moment apart. At least not without, like, when it's not by choice. We haven't spent that kind of time apart. So like, even just us trying to just have a moment, the other nurses were now like, I didn't know when I just started crying. And I felt so bad for crying because the person that is recovering is now the one petting you. The other nurses were coming to beg me and stuff and telling me to sit back down. Because when she said it, I don't like having to have arguments with authority. So I was already ready to get up. They just telling me to sit down. The other nurses now came to come and beg me to sit down. And it just took so much to like compose myself. It's things like that I actually remember. Things like that I actually remember. Before the surgery, Zoe actually went to see him. You went to see Daddy in the hospital, right? And there's this thing that Zoe does. When she's stressed or frustrated, she starts to like unravel her hair. But it's only Deji and I that really know, because obviously we live with her. So when she saw him, she was trying to smile and everything like that, but I noticed that she was just pulling at her hair. She put the blanket on him. You put the blanket on him, right? And what else did you do? You gave him some water and you were petting him. But were you sad? Are you sure? I feel like she was, but she just, I don't know how certain children are just born with this firstborn energy. She was just trying to smile for everybody and be happy for everybody and kind of entertain. I felt really bad about that because that's really not the kind of person I want her to be. I don't want her to be somebody that feels like she has to make other people smile all the time. But obviously, that was neither the place nor the time to start correcting that behavior. But she's even rubbing my back as I'm talking right now. She's so sweet. It's so sweet. So eventually that day he was eventually moved into his room. So that's when the real recovery started. Some more days, and then eventually the bandages started coming out, so eventually we could see his eye and stuff. He went to see an optometrist, and the healing began. In the midst of everything that was going on, one of my friends, Ellen, that come to visit us, on her way out, like leaving to go back home, her car, somebody actually hit her car. In the middle of being in the hospital, I developed a muscle tear, so I was limping. I couldn't walk for a long time. I could not walk without any assistance. Dami developed an eye infection while she was there, and her husband's car got hit in a stationary position, like it was not moving, and one car hit another car, the other car went hit their car as they were not moving. My mom's driver, Mr. Joshua, who has been her driver for like what feels like a lifetime now, his sister in this same Abuja was coming off an Okada and was hit. The week after that, the man that usually helps us clean our house, Mr. Sunday, was also in a hit-and-run and he did not make it. So it felt like things were just happening back to back to back. In the process of Deji healing, he was in his family house, I was in my family house, because I too could not do anything. I couldn't walk, I couldn't get Zoe ready for school. Zoe had exams. Zoe had exams during that period in time. It was just a chaotic, time.
I am back.
Yeah, but why were you petting me?
Because I love you.
Okay, I love you too. Thank you for petting me. No, thank you. I've already had enough. I had 2 slices. Sorry guys, break in transmission. They just came to drop something off in my house. So when I say so many things were happening, for the first week of recovery, we barely spent any time together. So his family was taking care of him, my family was taking care of me. I couldn't walk, I couldn't go anywhere, I couldn't do anything. It just felt like our lives were really halted. Second week came, God brought about healing. So much of the swelling went down, and so much of the swelling has gone down. And eventually I've been able to move around again. I do believe that God has completed the healing of my leg. Eventually he was able to remember what happened. Basically what happened, like I was saying, is so the car in front of him ran into the trailer, and on seeing this, he swerved to the side to get out of the way so that he doesn't in turn ram into that other car. And in the process, his side of the car slammed into that concrete thing that demarcates the roads. And then the car behind him also rammed into him. So in the process of all this going on, he hit his head on the steering wheel and then hit his head on the glass. His airbags did not go off. We still do not know till now if it's that they just didn't go off or that there were no airbags in that car at all. Hard to tell. His seatbelt, so he had some bruises on his side as well. His seatbelt refused to come off, and he basically climbed out of the car and walked to the side of the road. By the time he walked to the side of the road, he had taken his key and his phone. He some people saw him and offered to drop him off in his house. As he got closer to the house, maybe like 2 junctions away from the house, he decided to tell them to stop there. And his logic behind this is somebody telling me this a day after, so he was still in pain when he was explaining to me eventually what happened. He was like, he did not want them to know our house so that they would not come and steal anything from our house. So he thought it would be a better idea to walk home. So he literally walked down the expanse of the road leading to our close and walked into our house, unlocked the door, entered the house, locked the door, walked up from this ground floor, first floor, second floor to find me. And it was at the point in time that he found me and he had told me what had happened that the pain started to take over and he just could not do things anymore. So I'm so thankful to God. I'm thankful to God for the adrenaline that brought him back home. I'm thankful to God that his mind and his heart was truly working on autopilot and he came to look for me. I feel like, especially when you're fresh in marriage, sometimes it still feels like you're dating. Sometimes it still feels like you're just in a relationship and seeing where things go, except you guys just live together. But like at that point in time, like at different junctures of this situation, I feel like I already knew the importance I held in his life because I am his wife, but there's just a different degree to the relationship now that it wasn't before. There's just a different degree. The fact that in his state he was still thinking about me, still thinking about Zoe. Like I always find so many reasons to reiterate making the right decision when it comes to him and God leading us together, but stuff like this just takes it like overboard. It's just like, God, what would I have done? Sometimes I would just think, like while he was in the hospital, I would just think to myself, what would I have done if he did not make it? What would I have done if he didn't find his way home and we started searching for him? Like so many things. So many things went through my mind, and I'm just honestly so thankful and so grateful to God that my husband is alive. He's doing so much better. He's still not 100%. There are things that he can't chew. His nerve endings are still trying to reconnect. The swelling has gone down significantly, but he's alive. He's well. We're happy. We're so grateful. Deji feels like this is the most miraculous thing that's ever happened to him, and I'm so happy for him, and I'm so happy for everybody. So many people came through in so many ways. Like, it's reiterated to me that the people that I held in high regard were worth holding in high regard, because all the people that I expected to come through, they came through heavily. And I just feel like this point in time was just a reaffirmation of so many things for us. It was a reaffirmation for us that, you know, we have such a beautiful support system, reaffirmation of our relationship, reaffirmation of our friendships. It was just crazy, and I just want to thank God that we're back home. Zoe has finished her exams. She's getting ready to go on holiday. Ew, she's eating a peanut butter sandwich. She just woke up from a really good nap, slept in her room, and yeah, things are really looking up. So yeah, that is where I've been. I'm so excited to get back to making content. There's actually a lot that I've been meaning to tell you guys about. And sorry baby, be careful, okay? Just drink some water. I put some water on your table with ice. And I'm looking for more opportunities. You're welcome, my love. Looking for more opportunities to do that and spend time with you guys and just talk. A lot is happening right now, and I really want to be able to share all the ups and downs. With that, do not forget that you are sugar, you are spice, and you are bone mash gel first, and we will talk to you later in another video. Do you want to say bye? Bye. Mwah.